Now, the problem with getting wisdom, any kind of wisdom, whether it's about the external world or the internal world, is that you need to have a good amount of passion. You say, I am a great student, I am ready to learn. Okay? So to be able to possess any kind of wisdom, there are a couple of things you need to know. First, what does it mean to be a human being? We have a physical body, we have an emotional body, we have a psychological body, we have an intellectual body, and then we have a spiritual body. Okay? The spiritual body exists only for those people who are free from the physical, the emotional, the psychological, and the intellectual. Because remember, all your mental resources right now are being spent to secure the future of your physical body. You want to find a man who doesn't harass you in a relationship. You're tired of having negative emotions. You're tired of feeling insecure. Okay? And just in case you can't do that, you spend your mental energy trying to figure out what to do with the negative emotions. Whether you experience them in a classroom or at a job. Psychological body is about the traumas that live inside us. Not all of us have the psychological part. Okay? It means that somewhere in your life, a trauma, and remember what a trauma is. First, it starts with a feeling, and it's negative. But instead of you moving away, let's just say you love a guy or a gal, okay? You were inspired to move towards their direction. Then you fall in love with them. That's a great inspiring feeling. It's great. At a certain point, you come to realize he or she is a little negative, abusive. They harass you. Now you have a feeling. It's negative. Now remember something you need to know. If you examine most of the human emotions, almost 90% of them are negative. Almost every religion talks about how horrifying of an animal human beings are. Okay? Feelings eventually turn into emotions. I just don't like Bobby. I hate Bobby. But for some strange reason, you can't leave him. As you stay longer and longer and longer, Bobby's abuse goes deeper inside you. And it goes into your psyche, i.e. soul. And that becomes the foundation of everything that you are. You will lose the ability to trust, to be faithful. Okay? And now when that foundation is cracked, you can't build anything on it. Okay? Now remember Sigmund Freud, he doesn't come around the 13th century or the 14th century or the 15th century. He is the product of 19th and 20th century. Why? World War I, World War II, 4 of his sisters dead, Nazism coming to power. He looks at religion, he looks at human history, and he says, what is wrong with us? And all he sees negativity. Karl Marx, what does he talk about? Isolation, loneliness, depression. Okay? So when we talk about the psychological body, you need to understand, many of us in this class, we have traumas inside us. Okay? It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means you need to be able to have tools to cope with them the right way. Okay? And you need to love yourself enough to say, okay, I got these issues, what do I do with them? Okay? It's not enough for you to be inspired. It's not enough for you to simply desire. It needs to be love. something that simply won't leave you alone. And you can't generate this on your own. It needs to come from the outside. Okay? Now, so how does one begin to be closer to wisdom? So let's talk about this thing called love real quick. It begins with attraction. If you are not attracted to something, okay, you will never, ever, ever want to be intimate with it. One of the clever things about advertisement these days is the following. They know that none of us in this class have a long attention span. Many of us in this class can only look at something for maybe about 2 to about 5 seconds before we turn away. In those few seconds, okay, whatever it is that being advertised to you is hoping that it will capture your attention. 2 to 5 seconds. If you're not attracted to what's being advertised to you, you will change the channel. You will walk away. Okay? Now, when we get to Plato and Socrates, what you realize is that there is something profoundly magical in this component we call attraction. Because inside attraction lies this world of beauty. You're not really attracted to the thing out there. You're attracted to the thing that it represents. Beauty. Okay? That is what you're having a love affair with. Not Bob, not Jack, not Jim, not Janet. Attraction has beauty in it, and that is what you want. Now remember, this attraction has to compete with all the other advertisements around you. And if you don't have a good gardener, this seed called attraction will be trampled upon. Go back to the gospel story about the farmer. Okay? So you have a farmer, he has a bag, has seeds in this bag, and the bag has a hole. As he is walking, seeds fall to the ground. Some on concrete, some on wood, some on good ground, and some on better ground. Now, seeds can never grow if they fall on wood. They will never grow if they fall on concrete. They will never grow if they fall on hard land. Even if they were to fall on good land, you have vultures out there. Some of you may really be interested in these ideas, but your life is far too busy. Okay? And this is important for you to understand, that just because you like something and you want to pursue something, it may suggest that the inspiration is there, but your life at its current position, it will never allow you enough time, space, and energy to pursue. Okay? And if you have that wisdom inside you, you have a good amount of psychological freedom. You're not going to be in trauma or conflict all the time. All right? Now, once there is attraction, this is very generic because I could say you could be attracted to the right thing or the wrong thing. And then someone in the audience who's somewhat clever could say, well, who defines what right and wrong are? I'm not going to get into that. We'll never get into that. Okay? Let me just tell you very crudely and briefly, right and wrong depends on me. I will define what wrong is, and I will define what right is. If you're a smoker, don't try to convince me that smoking is good. It's beneficial. I'm just not going to buy it. I'm just going to dismiss your comments and never look your direction again for the remainder of the semester. All right? Now, once the seed is given some light, given some water, okay, some nourishment, it turns into curiosity. And curiosity demands attention. That you spend 5 minutes of the day focused on the thing that brought about attraction. It's not very long, okay? But it's a crack. It's an opening. If, for example, you were to become attracted to Socrates, and again, remember one of the nice things about Socrates, he does not look like Brad Pitt. He looks like Snoop Dogg. Brad Pitt can deceive you with his looks. Instinctually, something about you comes up and says, wow, this is such a good-looking man. You look at Snoop Dogg, something inspires inside, says, wow, what a horrifically ugly-looking man. It's easy to fall in love with Brad Pitt. Difficult to fall in love with Snoop. Or Kanye. Okay? Now, when Socrates creates this attraction, you go to him and you talk to him for about a few minutes. You walk away with a sense of curiosity. Now remember, this is a mystery. You don't know why. You don't know how. Now, if you're really, really serious at this stage, which most people are not, because curiosity lives amongst all this trash, the physical, the emotional, the iron, the bronze, the silver, curiosity doesn't stand a chance. Now, if you're amongst people like Socrates and Jesus Christ, they're not going to email you saying, hey, do you remember me? They're far too old to spend their energy like that. They will wait for your call, your text, your email. They want to make sure their time, their energy is being used and spent wisely. Okay? You know when you have your gas light is on in your car? You make sure not to push the gas pedal too hard. You become very careful where you go, how fast you go, how far you go. And you're always on the lookout for a gas station. Okay? That's Socrates. Young teachers aren't like that. Young teachers are deceived by their own ridiculous hopefulness that they can go out there and save everybody. That's not the case. Jesus couldn't do it, you can't do it either. All right? Now, if, for example, you get a call or an email or a text or someone comes and visits you, it means that they've been thinking about you. Now, that's the trick. They have been thinking about you. Okay? Now, some people may come and say to you, I can't pay rent. What do I need to do? Some people can come and say, I have all these negative feelings about my kid, or about my man or my woman. Or my father did ABCD when I was 5 or 10 or 20. Okay? The fact that they come to you, there is something attractive about you. That attraction has moved to curiosity. They think, at least assume, that there is something about you that can remedy them in some shape or form. Okay? Now, if the seed of curiosity is nourished, and remember, the only way you can nourish them is by being in touch. Okay? Because the more you're in touch with someone, the more of a relationship you have with them, the more space they're going to occupy inside you. If you keep reading the Bible 10 hours a day, you're going to see the world, experience the world, feel the world through the eyes of Jesus or Moses or Abraham. The more you look at, for example, pornography, the more you watch it, the more you're going to objectify women. Okay? Remember, you are what you eat. Okay. Now, when curiosity is nourished, it turns into interest. Now remember, attention can take place in about 1 minute, attraction. In 1 minute you can be attracted. But for it to be turned into curiosity, you need about 20 minutes. Interest, you need at least an hour. In other words, you need to spend time with this person so that you could ultimately move to this place called interest. Now you will go to the library. You will check out some books. You will read. You will try to think and reflect and examine. What happens with interest, once in a while when you go to breakfast or lunch or dinner with your friends or companions, you know what you'll do? I ran into Socrates, this fellow who's really, really ugly. But for some strange reason, I feel myself being attracted to him, and I don't know why. He is 90, I am 20. Okay? But you leave the mystery alone. Now, this doesn't mean that you won't have any conflicts or confusion as to why this is happening to you. Okay. Now, once you become interested, now keep in mind, people, at any time, should your life down here, the physical, emotional, psychological, or intellectual, should any of them experience disruption, attraction, curiosity, and interest will vanish. Because you have to attend to what's at hand. You may love Plato. You may love Jesus. But if you have a math exam tomorrow, Jesus and Plato are poison to your life. So remember, if any of you have addictions and you want to remove yourself from those habits, it's not enough for you to simply stop video games, playing video games. You also need to quit friendships. You physically have to remove yourself from those physical environments where you're encouraged to play more video games, or smoke, or drink, or watch pornography, or get into fights. Thinking by itself is not enough. Okay? Now, when interest is nourished and protected, something really, really, really awful will happen. Infatuation. In attraction, you think about Socrates about maybe half hour a day. In curiosity, you think about Socrates, Plato, or Jesus Christ, or Malcolm X about maybe 2-3 hours a day. In interest, you spend about 5 hours. But when you are infatuated, your physical life, emotional life, psychological life, intellectual life that have to do with your physical body, they all disappear. They go to the background. You are infatuated with Socrates, with Malcolm X, with Mahatma Gandhi. All teachers, all good teachers will eventually want to get you to the place of infatuation. It's really, really difficult to get rid of. For those of you in this class who have ever felt love for anyone, there is this point where you wake up in your bed and you say, I wonder what Johnny's doing. When you drag your sorry ass into the bathroom and you're sitting and you're peeing or pooping, you say, I wonder what Johnny is doing. When you're showering, you say, I wonder what Johnny's doing. This is called infatuation. They live inside you. Attraction, curiosity, interest, these are components that live inside you for only a short amount of time, and then they exit. Infatuation, the person has a nice little home inside you. Now, it is true that once you're infatuated, infected by this, stung by this, you may want to focus on your math exam, but you can't. You may want to focus on your job, but you can't. And that's going to cause a great deal of conflict. For those of you in this class, if, for example, you have had a father or a mother who were engaged in, say, going outside of the marriage boundary and being with another human being, okay? Never imagine, not even for a moment, that it was a simple and easy thing for them to do. They were devoured by inner conflicts. Okay? Now remember what conflict does, especially when it has to do with infatuation. Okay? Something about you breaks. You come to realize you have almost no control over the way you feel and think and where you want your physical body to go. Because when you get infatuated, to some extent you become homeless. The only person who can nourish you is the person that you're infatuated to. That is your home. Not only will they nourish your body, they also nourish your emotions. They also nourish your mind. They are your sun. When you're close to them, they give you warmth, comfort. You can get a nice tan. When you're far from them, you feel alone, isolated, abandoned, confused. Okay? So for those of you in this class who may take reflection, philosophy, wisdom, religion, self-knowledge seriously, you need to understand you're very lucky if you're still at the stage of attraction. Because you can leave it on the side and go do your stuff. If you're curious, consider yourself lucky. If you're interested, it means you can kind of be like some of you in this class who are have a very organized life. Interest means, well, from 9 to 10:15, Tuesdays and Thursdays, you think for an hour and a half. And then you can leave all that aside and attend to other stuff. When you are infected with infatuation, you can no longer have a decent schedule. It's all over the place. Now, if you are profoundly unfortunate, cursed by the gods, and infatuation turns into obsession, oh, you're in trouble. You are in so much trouble. You will never be able to focus on your physical life, emotional life, psychological or intellectual. Why? Obsession means that every ounce of your being is consumed, taken by Socrates. Do you know how rare that is? And remember when there was a movie a long time ago, Body Snatchers or Invasion of the Body Snatchers, right? So you have a Socrates or a Malcolm X. They're the virus. They infect you. You know, you think you can take some garlic or vitamin C stuff to get the sickness away, but no. They're down to your soul. And you're bedridden. And there isn't much you can do to heal yourself. Okay? Now, when you are obsessed, there is no place you can go where you can find rest. For the first time in your life, you have truly become homeless. I don't mean homeless in a physical sense. There is only one person who can give you nourishment. And that's the person who put inside you the seed of attraction, cared for it to become curiosity, cared for it to become interest, infatuation, and then obsession. After obsession, it kind of morphs into this thing called love. In love, what you have is faith. You have trust. People fall in love with those who live in the prison system. They have a love affair. People fall in love with those who are abusive. Love makes you blind. In love, you're always taking a leap of faith. Always. The most important aspect of love, faith and trust, is called submission. Submissive. You surrender. And when you surrender, you become what we call a Taoist. You become an empty cup. There is nothing in it. And the person with whom you fall in love, that person is the only one who can fill your cup. No one else. They are the only ones who can give you commandments. And their commandments are the only ones worth following, listening to, applying. So if I was to ask you, how does change take place? If, for example, it was supposed to be on a quiz or an exam, how does someone change? Be clever, be reflective, be cunning. It starts with attraction. Desires are created. Curiosities are formed. Interest is grown. Okay? Infatuation is born. Obsession. Then the person has command over you. He or she will say, you will obey. So if you're going to therapy, for example, if there is no love between you and your therapist, nothing is going to happen. You'll just have some nice information in your tiny, pathetic little brain. Okay? Remember, information, data, they are insufficient to make human beings move. What is most significant about infatuation, obsession, and love is that they house intense emotions. See, many of you right now, you may want to sit up at night and pray or meditate because you've read something. You've taken a class. It's fashionable these days. But 10 minutes later, you say, this is a waste of time. If, on the other hand, someone very close to you passed away, okay, and your life has been turned upside down, you don't need to read books. You simply sit, weep, cry, and pray. All because you have intense emotions inside you. Okay? So when we go back to the story of Plato and Socrates, pay attention. Plato is a young man filled with a lot of ambitions. Socrates is a genius who's able to infect him and ultimately have Plato, a 20-year-old, fall in love with him. Okay? Now, this love comes in a variety of different shapes and forms, but these are the stages you need to go through. First is called eros. Just because you love Socrates, it doesn't mean you understand him. It means attraction has turned into obsession. You just want to be around him. Some of you in this class, maybe you have a love affair with Jesus Christ. Maybe you read the Gospels. Just because you read, it doesn't mean you understand. It just means you know how to read. Plato enjoys being around the physical presence of Socrates. That's the first stage of love. And go back to our previous lectures, okay? Socrates does not promise him a house or a job or money or marriage. Plato is in love with the mystery that lives inside Socrates. He doesn't know what it is. If you're wondering why, for example, Socrates and Plato's relationship lasted for 10 years, and then Plato became a giant in Western culture as a thinker, it's because Socrates had depth. If you're wondering why your love affair, the people you're physically intimate with, why it doesn't last very long, either you don't have much depth or your companion, or both. And whenever something has no depth, it will expire. And you will be regretful. Okay? The next stage about about eros is called philo. This is about excellence, it's about friendship, it's about the mind. Socrates understands life really, really well. It's not just a Brad Pitt with a pretty face but no brain inside. Socrates is like, he has Plato around him, but Plato has moved up. He wants to understand how Socrates is able to think the way he does. You know, it's not difficult to fall in love with someone's body, but to find a brain that has depth, understanding, and wisdom, and then to fall in love with that despite all the fears and conflicts and contradictions that it creates, it is truly divine. And Plato has enough humility inside him to never interrupt Plato while he talks. Because remember what love does. It pushes you into a place of submissiveness. You don't exist. You have no thoughts. You have no emotions except the ones related to Socrates. This makes for a profoundly lonely life. We have about 3,000-4,000 of Western philosophy. There is only one Socrates and one Plato. That's how rare these things happen. I have taken enough of your time. Some of you look bored. Some of you look bored times 10. Do you have any questions or comments before we go? Well, now that you know how love is made, go create one. It won't take you very long. 10 minutes.